Did I just do that or Perek do that?
I did it. Sorry.
I was about to press it and I didn't know.
Yeah.
Okay, anyways. So on the bottom of Mem Tes on the base, and we had the stira, 3 stiras between what Yeshaya said and Moshe Rabbeinu had said. Right? So the first one was that Moshe said nobody could see Hashem, and Yeshaya said he saw Hashem. So we answered that one is talking about the other Nevi'im could see Hashem, but through a frosted glass, and Moshe saw him through a much clearer glass. And then we said that Dirshu Hashem being Matzai, to look out for Hashem, that's referring to a Yachid, but a Rabbim always finds Hashem. And we said during a Seres Yimei Tshuva, that Seres Yimei Tshuva is the time that you could find, that you even a Yachid could find Hashem. And the last pasuk, the last stira was, is it possible for somebody to have life added onto him? Meaning, if you're a good guy, will you get added years to your life? Or if you're a bad guy, will you get years subtracted from your life? All right? So the second line up from the bottom of the Testament base says, Mispar Yemecha Amale, and the days, I'm going to fill up the days of your life. So Tanoi, it's a machloikas Tanoim. The Tanya, because it says in Bryce, as Mispar Yemecha Amale, the number of your days I'm gonna fulfill on Talmud Aleph now. Elu Shnei Dairos. These are, I'm not sorry. I mean, it's pronounced Shnei. It means like we would pronounce it like the years. Shnei, not 2, right? Shanim Shepaiskin LaAdam Shas Leidase. Rashi says it's the years that a person gets. That gets decided on a person when he's going to die. Zacha. So if he's Zaycha Mashlimin Lai, he lives out his years. Loi Zacha. If he's not Zaycha, Paichsin Lai, then we subtract. Divi Rebbe Kiva. This is a major hashkafic Gemara. If he's Zaycha, then we're going to add more years onto his life. Loi Zacha, Paichsin Lai, they take it away. So according to this, it's a machlokes Tanaim whether a person could have years added on to him or not. Right? And then you have a problem like, yeah, what are you saying?
Excuse me. David and Melech had the years added on to him.
Oh, so right. So that's going to be, we're gonna discuss that. That's the next Gemara. The Gemara will do that. But the Gemara Tais is a different kasha. We said in Mayid Cotton, right, that there's no mazel. I mean, it's totally any mazel, right? And then we said there's no mazel to Yisrael. So that's one of the issues that they bring up. Like, what is going on here? If a person's bad, is he going to lose years of his life? Is he not going to use years in life from here? It's a machlokes. It's a machlokes tanoim whether that's going to be, right? Again, Rebbe Kiva said, if you don't live up to your proper standard, then you're not going to live the allotted years that you were given. And the Chachamim say, if you're Zaycha, you can be added on, and if you're not Zaycha, you can be subtracted. Fine. So I'm related to Rebbe Kiva. Arehu Aimer, right? But Yeshaya told Chizkiah, by Safti al Yamecha Chamesh Esrei Shana, I'm going to add on to you 15 years. Right? So you see, Beferish, that you could add some years onto somebody. Some of them, Rebbe Kiva said to them, he donated his own years. Right? Meaning Chizkiah gave his own years to, who do you give it to? He gave it to, it wasn't to David. David was 70 years, right?
Yeah, from Adam Rishon.
Right. So that's, the Gemara is not referring to that one here. That's what you were referring to before, right? Here we're referring to, it's Chizkiah, he gave it to, what was the name? I think it says Vaita. Anyways, let's see. I'll say, he added on his own Teda, Sharei Navi Aymed Misnava. right? Because there was a Navi that said in Nevi'us many years before this, right? And he says, Hine ben Noila the base David, there's going to be a son born to the base David, Yeshayo, Yoshio, Shema, his name would be Yoshio, Vadayin le Noila Menashe, and Menashe wasn't even born yet, right? So therefore, what do we see? That this whole thing was in the works from before. See, Rashi says that when Chizkiah got sick, Menashe wasn't yet born, and Yeshio came from Menashe. So it must be that when he was sick, they were gizeira to give him less years, and then he gave him away. I guess that's how you have to say it. Right, so that's
he got it from himself. Rashi's saying he got it from himself. Hashem added the years back on from his own years.
Right, but
he didn't get it from somebody else.
So where did Yoshio's years come from?
Yoshio's years were from Yoshio. What does that mean?
No, it seems like he was.
The Gemara is saying that it was Maisa from what he lost. It added it back.
Correct. When Chizkiah did an Aveira,
he lost.
He lost years. Then he did Shuvah.
So it was Maisa,
and he got back the years.
All it means is that he got it back.
Yeah. Right. The question, right. So the problem is that what do you mean that's added on? That's not really added on. That's giving back what was originally taken from him.
The Gemara is saying that's considered Haisif.
Right.
Taisa says the correlate to seven.
Right. Correct.
Considered being Maisif because it was Nigzal that he shouldn't have it.
Right. Right. Yeah. Right. So it's not Chizkiah giving it over to somebody. It's Chizkiah's own 15 years that he had. Right. So we're saying that was already predetermined. That's where Rabbi Akiva is going to understand it. The Rabbanon. And the Rabbanon who disagree and say that 15 years were added, what are they going to do? So he's going to answer, Miksiv me Chizkiah lebeis David. Miksiv me Chizkiah. Does it say me Chizkiah lebeis David? It says it's to beis David. Ime Chizkiah noilad, right? Ime inish achrina. It could either be from Chizkiah or it could be from somebody else. Yeah, meaning, so we have no idea if where Chizkiah would have come from. That's where the Rabbanan is saying it. We don't know. So the Rabbanan learned that if Chizkiah wouldn't have lived those 15 years, then Yoshio would have been born to somebody else. I can't say I understand this exactly, right? But now we're saying that, okay, Yoshio is going to be born. It's just a matter of who his father is going to be. I mean, yeah, I guess that's what you have to say. That is what you have to say. But, okay, it's an interesting thing that it's not predestined of whose children are going to be. Meaning we knew that there's going to be somebody in the world, Yoshio. We just didn't know who his father was going to be. Right? Okay. That's a machlokes.
We say that about Mashiach, that every door could bet and be Zayich for the Mashiach. So you see, there's an idea of predestined that there's going to be a Mashiach, but Lav Dafka, it could be coming from different places.
I hear. Yeah, but that's just who Mashiach is. Here it's shot that we're going to have this person.
But if somebody's born, right, but the question is where it comes from. Where does Mashiach come from? It can come from somebody in every generation.
Yeah, no, I hear that. Fine. Okay, good. So let's see weiter. So Ishtay Shemesa, so the end of the Mishna says that if a guy's wife dies, so those are all the different scenarios of marrying a wife's sister. Right? And then the Gemara says, Yevimtay Shemesa. So Amar of Yosef, Kan Shana Rebbe, Mishna Yishaina Tzricha. This is a Mishna that's not necessary. Because what's the Mishna teaching us? So So interesting machlokes Rashi Tosfos here what this means. Rashi says it's an extra Mishnah. The zil kari bei rav hu alei b'chayah shalei nasa ha'choyse ela b'chayah. The pasuk says beferish that a sister, you're not allowed to marry a wife's sister when she's alive. And the reason is because you don't want the sisters fighting. Okay, so that the pasuk says it. So why does the Mishnah have to come teach us something that says beferish in the pasuk? Right, so that's why this Mishnah is extra. Right, that's the way Rashi understands it. Tosfos says, we see many times in Shas that the Mishnayos tell you something that's beferish in a pasuk. Right, the Mishnah is there to teach you halachas. Of course, it's going to say something that's beferish in the pasuk. Right, so Tosfos says, so it means that the second section on Yibum, why do you need it for? We know that Yivama has the same din as a regular husband and wife, right? So when you already said in the beginning of the Mishnah, not in the beginning, but the line before this, that once the wife dies, you can marry the sister and all the other scenarios like that. So there's no need to repeat it by Yivama. Of course, Yivama is going to have the same din. Why should Yivama not have the same din? So that's the way Tosfos understands that's extra. Okay, Hadron Allah Chaylitz and L'chaim to all those that make L'chaims. I already had my seltzer.
L'chaim.
So L'chaim, yeah. Okay, that was a long Perek. That was actually a very long Perek. Next Perek is 3 blat.
I jumped the gun, but L'chaim.
L'chaim Perek. The reason Makdimin, that we had that yesterday or 2 days ago, right?
Yeah.
Shahuye mitzvah loy mashinan was a theme in this Perek. Right? Don't push off the mitzvah. Yeah. All right. Well, you're going to need alcohol for this next Mishnah, so it's good. Okay. Okay. So now, as a hakdama to this, so there's basically 2 ways to marry a Yavama. You can do Yibum, which is Bia, and you could do Maimer, right? Or you could do both. Maimer is basically just like Kedushin. You're telling her that you're going to marry her. And then Yibum would be the actual marriage. There's also 2 ways to get rid of Yavama if you don't want to marry her. You could do Chalitza, which is the proper way, or you can give a get, which is not the proper way. So the question is, when somebody does these shticks and doesn't do it properly, and there's multiple wives, so then the question is, let's say a get. Does a get get rid of the yibum or does it not? Meaning there's something also called zika, which we haven't had in a couple of days, right? So zika is that there's an automatic connection, right? When the husband dies without kids, there's an automatic connection between the wife and the brothers-in-law, right? So that zika is either fulfilled with yibum or it's taken away with chalitza. But what about get? If you give a get, so now that's somewhere in the middle. So that takes away some of the zika, but does it take away all the zika, right? Then we also have to know that there's a din that once you already show that you will not be marrying this almana, this yavama, then you're no longer allowed to take her in marriage. It's asur, right? Because really, be'etzem, it's asur to marry a wife's sister. We allow it for yibum, but once you show that you're not doing it, so then you're out of the game. To go back into it would mamash be an isser, maybe even karas, right? So the question is giving a get gonna knock this? Does that show that you don't want her, or not? Chalitza definitely shows you don't want. That's the way the Torah says it. Okay, so let's go through all the scenarios. So first we start off on the machlokes Rav Gamliel and the Chacham. So Rav Gamliel Omer, ein get achar get, v'loy maimer achar maimer, v'loy be'ila achar be'ila, v'loy chalitza achar chalitza. So what does this mean? There's no such thing as a get after a get. So meaning this is fairly straightforward. You have 2, the guy dies and he has 2 wives, right? That need one of them is going to need yibum or chalitza. So what happens is he gives a get to the first wife. Now a get So a get, according to Rabbi Gamliel, is a valid way of knocking off the zika. So in which case, once she's knocked off, this lady, then you're no longer that husband or whatever, that new husband, the brother is not allowed to marry her sisters because achos ishtai is not allowed, even after divorce. Fine. But what happens if you do a get? He gives a get to the second wife too. So is he not allowed to marry the second wife's relatives? Or do we say that get is meaningless? If you walk over to a lady in the street who you never saw in your life and you give her a get, are you not allowed to marry her sisters now? Because you gave this random lady a get? Of course you can. It's meaningless. Right? So Rabbi Gamliel says that once you gave a get to the first wife, it doesn't make a difference that you gave a get to the second wife. Ain't get achar get. That's a meaningless get. That's meaningless. And therefore, the husband would be able to marry the second wife's relatives because that get was meaningless.
Yeah, but wasn't there a zika on the second wife?
There was a zika from both, and that zika was.
But a random lady in the street, there was no zika. Over here, it was a zika.
So Rabbi Gamliel holds that the first get knocks off the zika fully. So when you give a get to the second wife, it's like giving a get to a random lady in the street.
Yeah, but there was a Zman Isser of that second lady when he was married to the first. Correct? That's
true, but right now that was knocked off. So therefore, he's saying the second get is meaningless. That's what he's saying. Ain't get, achar get.
I'm trying to understand why.
Because once the first wife was given a get, so then there's no more zika.
If you have a chayis ishtai, I'm saying in any of these cases, right? If you divorce the first wife, so then what was we said before, if there's a zman that there was usher, the lady, so she's always going to be usher to him. There's what do you call it? That's if she becomes mutter to him, right? There's a sheet, it's a machlokes. I forgot who holds it. That once she's usher to you, she cannot become mutter to you, right? Yes, so then how over here?
But we're not talking about the lady here. We're talking about her relatives. The second wife is not allowed. You're not allowed to. It's Eishes Achid. That lady is not. You're right. That lady is not becoming mutter. The question is her relatives. Her relatives. So Rav Gamliel is saying her relatives are mutter. Ain't get achar get. So let's see. Rav Gamliel ain't get achar get. Maimer, same thing. Let's say he does maimer to one wife, which again, maimer is saying that he's going to do yibum, and then he does maimer to the second wife. So that's also meaningless according to Rabbi Gamliel, because once you do one wife, once you marry one wife, that's it. You don't do another wife. The same thing. If he sleeps with the first wife, when he does the classic yibum, and then he does it with the second wife, he did an isser, he did a major isser, but it's not going to answer him to her relatives because it was never chalan. It was meaningless. The loy chalitza, that's the simple. Yeah.
Kahati in the Mishna he says the Rabbanan introduced Maima that everybody should do Maima first.
Yes.
That's what is that?
Why? Yeah. So we're going to see.
I learned it today, and it was like, why? So what is he talking about?
Yes, the Chachamim put in Maimer. We're going to see tomorrow's daf or the next day.
Okay.
Yeah, tomorrow's daf or the next day's daf. That's going to discuss why the Chachamim put in Maimer. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's going to discuss that. So anyway, so Rav Gamliel says there's nothing after. Once you deal with the first wife, that's it. No, yesh get achar get, but yesh maimer achar maimer. That's what Zev Bol was trying to say. The Chachamim say there is a get after a get, meaning you have two wives that one of them is going to need yibum and one of them is not, and you give a get to the first wife and then you give a get to the second wife. So he's saying that there is some sort of need for the second wife to have a get, because since a get is not prescribed in the Torah as a way to get rid of a yavama, so since it's not proper, So therefore, the second one still has a zika even after the first one has a get. So therefore, if this guy gives a get to both wives, then he is going to be usher to the relatives.
See, Yaakov, I don't understand. However get normally works, doesn't the Gemara say that get has to be creases? The idea of a get is that it's creases. How can you have a get that leaves over something?
Because here the get is not the proper way to get rid of it.
So then
here
why does it count for anything then? Meaning
that's the takanas chacham.
Why would they be misaking something that's not ke'ein deraisa?
Oh, so we're going to see that on Amud Beis, why they were misaking it. Because if you would say, on Amud Beis, the Gemara is going to say, if you're going to say this get goes scot-free, then people are going to start confusing what could get with chalitza.
Why would they make anything then? They shouldn't. It should not be brought into anything then.
No, right, but the problem is when the guy gives a get, then and you're going to say, oh, this get is not a get.
So they should say get doesn't work by Yibum. Period. It shouldn't work at all.
Correct.
If it's going to confuse things, then it shouldn't work at all. Why would you allow get to work at all by Yibum? What does it have to do with Yibum at all? There's a formed way to get rid of her. It's called chalitza, and that's the only thing that can work. Why would you create something called get?
Because they were afraid. Since a get does have some form of showing that he is not going to marry her, they were not going to allow Yibum after that.
So they should have been second that it doesn't work at all. Go the other way.
No, but they're afraid that because get does have, they didn't know what to do because get does have some form of
kedushin
creases.
What is it can't. So why aren't they worried that once people see that you could go ahead and be mishayir when it comes to get, that people are going to start being mishayir when it comes to regular getting? Why don't we look at it the other way? They should be misakin. It shouldn't work at all because then people go ahead and say, oh, there's a way to be mishayir when it comes to getting, even though there's a din of creases.
Okay, and maybe, but I guess they were afraid that there's something about a get that shows that he's not interested in her, and therefore they had to reckon with it. Somehow, some way they had to reckon with it. That's what you have to say. But let's wait till Amud Beis to see how the Gemara says that the gizeira. Fine, but then he says, so the Chacham say yesh get achar get, yesh maimer achar maimer. Meaning, if he says maimer that he's marrying the first wife, and then he says he's marrying the second wife, then he's going to be usher to both relatives because there is a connection there. And again, the reason why get and maimer there's some sort of connection according to the Chachamim is because midrabanan they work. Avaloy achar bila, veloy achar chalitza klum. But for bia and chalitza, there's nothing. Meaning, if you do chalitza to the first wife, then that's it. Everything's done. You're perfectly mutter to go with the relatives of the second wife, even if the guy decides to do a chalitza to the second wife. That's meaningless. It's no different than going over to some lady in the street and doing chalitza with her, right? Then you're gonna say, "Oh, you can't marry her relatives." No, because it's meaningless. Same thing if he's boiled the first wife, then he's boiled the second wife. The second wife, it's meaningless. Meaning he did it Isser, but it's meaningless. Fine. Now, Ketzad. Now, how does this work? This Ketzad, the Gemara says later, has no shaykhs to the first 5 lines of the Mishna. Right? If that's not a Yevamos type thing, then I don't know what is. You think Ketzad, you say, okay, so now it's going to explain what these cases are. No, this Ketzad has nothing to do with it. Right? The Ketzad here, Rashi says it's something totally independent, right? It's going on somebody on one yavam and one yavama. See, till now we were talking about one yavam and there were 2 wives. This now we're talking about is a one yavam getting rid of, meaning this guy's brother was married. Reuven was married to 1 wife, and Shimon, instead of doing the either yibum or chalitza, decides to do all sorts of shticks, right? And he makes things very complicated. So Ketzad, so how does that work? Also maimer b'yavimtoi. Let's say he did maimer, which is fine. And then he gave her a get. So he never did yibum. He did maimer, which works midrabanan. And then he gave her a get. So now what? Now what do we do? So tzricha imenu chalitza. He cannot do yibum to her because he already gave her a get. But we're not going to say that the get works. So therefore they're going to need chalitza. Fine. That's scenario number 1. Scenario number 2 is also maimer v'chalitza. He did maimer and then he did chalitza. So then tzricha menu get. The chalitza then is not enough because since he did maimer, which works with the rabbanon, we don't know if chalitza can get rid of maimer. So he needs to do chalitza because that's what the Torah prescribes. He also needs to do get because that's what get does from get gets rid of mimer. Fine. Then also mimer ubal. Let's say he did mimer ubal. That's exactly what he's supposed to do. That is exactly what he's supposed to do. So there we got the guy that finally did something the way he's supposed to. Then Nosan get. This is a real winner. He does the opposite. He gave her a get, and then he did mimer. So then tricha get v'chalitza. Then he's going to need a get and chalitza, and he can't do yibum. Nosan get ubal. If he gave a get, and then he did bia, then also tricha get v'chalitza. Right? He's going to need get and chalitza, because again he can't stay with her because he gave her a get. Right? But he needs chalitza because lamaisa he did yibum. Right? So. So that's why he needs both. Nosan get the chalatz. If he gave a get and then he did chalitza, so then there's nothing to do. Ein achar chalitza klum. There's nothing to do. Once you did chalitza, you're for sure cut off and you're good to go. Right? Fine. Another scenario, chalatz. If he did chalitza and then asa mimer and then he gave a mimer, or nosan get. Or he gave a get, ubal, and then he had bia. Baal, or another way he did it is he did bia, which would be yibum, va'asam mimer, and then he did mimer. Nasan get, and or he gave her a get, the chalatz, and then he did chalitza. So then ein achar chalitza klum. There's nothing after chalitza, and he would be okay, right? So both of these cases he did do. Both of these cases did everything, right? He did chalatz. Mimer, he did chalitza, he did get, he did mimer, and he did bia, depending on which order he did. Either way, the Gemara is saying that once he did chalitza, there's nothing else to do. Fine. Now on Tamid Beis. Achas yevama, achas liyavam achad. Right. Whether it's even this is. I mean, you have four words, five on one line. Four. Right? 4 words of achas. One means whether, and one means one. Right? Achas yivama, achas liyavam echad. This is whether it's talking about one yavam to one yivama. V'achas shtei yavamas liyavam echad. And the same scenario would apply to whether there's 2 wives and 1 yavam. Right? Ketzad. So what's the case? Asa maimer bezu, umaymer bezu. Let's say he went and did maimer on the first wife, and then mimer on the second wife. So tzrichas shnei gittin v'chalitza. He's going to need 2 gittin, 1 from each wife. This is going according to the Chachamim, obviously. V'chalitza, and he's going to also need chalitza for one of them, because you're not going to need chalitza from both, because once you do chalitza on one, the other one is patur. Fine. Mimer bezu, beget bezu. Let's say he says he's going to marry one, and he gives a get to the other one. So then tzricha get, b'chalitza, he's going to need a get and chalitza, right? Because you need a get because that's how you get rid of mimer. You also need chalitza because that's the regular way you get rid of a woman who you're not interested in marrying. Fine. Mimer bezu ba'lazu. Let's say he did mimer to one, and he slept with the other one, which means he did yibum to one, and he just did mimer. So then tzricha's base gittin. The chalitza. So they're gonna need, right, 2 lost the place, 2 gittin and 1 chalitza. What is it? Right. So meaning tzrichas hemenu chalitza achas. He's gonna need one of them is gonna need chalitza. So where Rashi says it. Also b'krayva shniya derabanan, and he's gonna also be derabanan on the krayvas. Udari yesh get achar get, and that's what we mean, that there is a get achar get. Again, that's according to the Chachamim.
There's no Isurim Deraisa involved in that. That's all Derabanan. The whole thing.
Yeah, that's a good point. Maimer bezu b'chalat lezu. Let's say he did maimer to one and chalitza to another. So then harishayna tzricha get. The first one needs a get, right? Because the maimer, once he did mimer to one of them, So then that was done before the chalitza. So maybe there is some sort of relationship there. Fine. Get lezu v'get lezu. If he gave a get to each wife, then tzricha is hemenu chalitza. They're going to need chalitza, meaning again, one of them is going to need chalitza from him. Get lezu baal lezu. She gives a get. He gives a get to one wife, and he's baal the other. Tzricha get v'chalitza. He's also going to need get and chalitza, right? Because what? And the reason why can he just stay married? Because the reason why he can't stay married is because he already gave a get. Once you give a get to one of the wives, then you're out, right? That's a main theme throughout this Mishnah. Once you give a get to one of the wives, then we have to be concerned that you show that you are not being mekayim your brother's house, and therefore you're out.
According to the Rabbanon, why does that work according to the Rabbanon? It sounds like almost Rabbi Gamliel's shita. According to the Rabbanon, that they're two separate things. The zika for one is separate to the zika to the second one.
Right.
Why does giving the first one a get show anything about the second one?
I hear. You're saying no, but we have to. But it doesn't make a difference. But once he wrote a get, he's showing that he's not interested in being mekayim his brother's house.
Why? Why does it show anything more than he's not interested in marrying that particular woman?
But once you do it to one, then you're out.
No, that's Rabbi Gamliel's shita. Rabbi Gamliel said it's all one big challenge. So Mamela, once you give a get, it shows that you're throwing out the whole yibum business. According to the Rabbanon, the Imam is two separate.
I don't know. I don't know. Are the Rabbanon going to require it?
This is only according to the Rabbanon.
No, I know, but are they
going to part of the Mishnah?
I'm saying, had he not done anything with the second wife, would the Rabbanon still require it? It's only because he started up with the second wife.
Yeah, but he did yibum to the second wife. He gave a get to the first one and did yibum to the second one. According to Rabbi Gamliel, that would be a problem. But according to the Rabbanon, why is that an issue at all?
Right, but because he gave a get, so then that's the pshat. Because he gave a get, the yibum is a shvacha yibum. It's what we call passul. What is it called? The lashon. What does Rashi say? Bia psulahi. It's a bia psula. That's what it is. Once he gives it does. Yeah. Once he gives a get, that means even the yibum that he does is no good. Anyways. Let's see weiter. Get lezu umaymer bezu. If he gave a get to this one and he does maymer with this one, so of course it's also going to need tzricha get b'chalitza. If yibum needs get b'chalitza, so maymer certainly is going to need it. Get lezu v'chalatz lezu. If he gave a get to this one and chalitza to this one, then ein achar chalitza klum. Like we said, there's nothing after chalitza. Fine. Chalatz v'chalatz. He did chalitza with one, and then he did chalitza with the other one. Oy chalatz for asa maimer nasan gerubal. Or he did chalitza with one, and then he did maimer, or a get, or bia. Oy baal ubaal. Or he was together with the first wife and the second wife. Oy baal, or he was baal v'asa maimer nasan get v'chalatz, or gave a get or did chalitza. Ein achar chalitza klom. So like he said, once there's chalitza, he doesn't have to do anything, not to the other wife, not to the first wife. Chalitza gets him out of it. Then the Gemara says, the first wife
in the last case, the first wife he's still married to, right? The first thing was baal. He was baal the first one, and then to the second one, mamar get v'chalitza.
Right. So he's saying he can stay.
Presumably, he can stay married to the first one. I'm just curious.
Right. And really, the Gemara should say in this case, right? And the Gemara should say, which the Gemara is going to ask. Correct. Yeah, very good. All these cases apply to if it's one brother marrying two sisters, two not sisters, two wives, so it's two yavam into one yavama. Fine. Then the Gemara just quotes the case on Amar Aleph. Chalatz v'asa maimer. If he did chalitza and then he did maimer, right? Nasan get ubal. Oy bal v'asa maimer v'nasan get b'chalatz. Ein achar chalitza klum. Bein betchila, bein be'emtza, bein b'sayf. Once he does chalitza, it doesn't make a difference if he did chalitza first with this woman or second or at the end. V'be'ila bizman shehi betchila ein acharei klum. And be'ila, when it's in the beginning, there's obviously nothing else because once he does yibum, then that he's fine. The emtzo b'sayf yesh acharei klum. But if he does bia in the middle, meaning after maimer or after get or whatever it is, then there is something afterwards, right? Yeah, so that's because right, because the yibum was bad. It was considered a bad yibum. Once he gives a get first, or that's called a yibum psula, and it doesn't work. Fine, Reb Nechemia, he disagrees. Reb Nechemia, Aimer achas beila achas chalitza, whether it's beila, whether it's chalitza, bein betchila, bein be'emtza, bein b'sayf, ein acharei klum. He says when there was a bi or a chalitza, it doesn't make a difference where, when, what, how. He doesn't care about a bi psula. Meaning again, the chachamim say that if you give a get first and then do your yibum, even though al-khari your yibum is what you did, so who cares if you gave a get? He says no, that is considered a negative. It's not a proper yibum, so therefore you cannot stay married. Rabbi Nechemia, he doesn't care. He don't make a difference. Once there was a proper bia or proper chalitza, he doesn't care which way it goes. Fine. So zog di Gemara, ad kan le pligi ela beget achar get u'maimer achamaimer. So when did the chachamim have machlokes? Whether we say there's a get after a get, or whether there's maimer after maimer. I will get echad biyavama. But if there's a get given to yavama, and or somebody does maimer just regular, meaning he gives a get, or he does maimer, then mahani, then that's proper, right? So now my timer, Amar Rabbanon get biyavam mahani. So how come the Rabbanon said, right? Akiva, this is what you were asking about. Why did the Chacham say that a get works for yavama? It shouldn't work for yavama, right? So that's the way Rashi explains it. Madaraisa, you need chalitza. Who gives you any right to give a get? Why? Mishum de mahani ba'alma. Because get really works in the regular scenario, right? How does one get divorced from one's wife? With a get. Because if you're going to say a get doesn't help at all when a guy does it to his yavama, amri get loitzia v'chalitza loitzia. They're going to say a get sends out a woman, and chalitza sends out a woman, right? When with the get loy mahani, chalitza nami loy mahani, and just like a get doesn't work for a woman whose husband died without kids, so to chalitza is also not going to help. And they're going to say, okay, so he did chalitza, and now okay, chalitza doesn't work. I have to do yibum, right? And he will have changed his mind. And he's going to want to do yibum. And say, hey, the same way this guy's get didn't work, so yibum's not going to. So the chalitza is not going to work either. So because of that gizeira, they had to say that a get has some sort of function, right? My time, Omer Rabbanon Maimer b'yoam mahani, and then how come the Chachamim said that Maimer works? Mishum de mahani ba'alma, because Maimer does work regularly, meaning a person can get married. Maimer is just another form of kedushin. Di'amrit loy mahani, because if you're going to say that Maimer doesn't work, in place of yibum, Amri Maimer liknois ubia liknois. Maimer is kaina and bia is kaina. I mean, a normal marriage, one of the ways to get married is with Maimer, or you can have bia. And if Maimer doesn't help, so they're going to say bia also doesn't help. And then somebody's going to come and be together with the second wife because he's going to say, hey, Maimer doesn't work. So B also doesn't work, and I can just go whichever wife I want. So because of these gezeiras, the Chachamim said Maimer has to work midrabanan, and get has to work also midrabanan. My time, Omer Rabbanon bia psula yesh acharei klum. How come the Rabbanon said that a bia psula, then there is something after it? Right? Meaning, what was their problem? Why did they have a problem with a bia psula? So Amri, we say ibia achara get he. If you're having bia after the get, gizeira bia achar get, then they made a gizeira because of bia achar get, right? Mishum bia achar chalitza, because of bia achar chalitza, right? So, meaning they're gonna say that if you're gonna allow bia after a get, then people are gonna think that you do bia after chalitza too, which is obviously not the case. Bia achar maimer and if you're gonna say that bia comes after maimer, gizeira bia achar maimer, mishum bia achar bia. They said a gizeira of bia after maimer because of bia achar bia. Because they're going to think that you can go with one, you can be boiled one wife and then be boiled another wife. Fine. Umay time Amar Rabbanon hai chalitza psula ein acharei klum. And how come the Rabbanon said that once there's chalitza done, there's nothing after that? Amri. So they say my ligzar. What are you going to make a gizeira? Ligzar chalitza achar get. Mishum chalitza achar chalitza. What are you going to do? Say, to do chalitza after a get. People are going to learn from that you can do chalitza after a get. Kol ki hani tachloitz v'tezel. Right? Who cares? Let a guy do chalitza after a get. So what? There's no loss. You can do, like we said this many times. Let a guy do chalitza. Who cares? It's meaningless, right? There's nothing negative that's going to come out from it. Ligzar chalitza achar maimer mishum chalitza achar bia. Right? So maybe we should make a gizeira of chalitza after maimer because of chalitza after bia, right? Meaning, if you're going to say chalitza works for maimer, then people are going to think that chalitza after bia is also, right? So atu chalitza achar maimer milay ba you get l'maimare, right? So if chalitza that you do after maimer, doesn't she need a get for the maimer? Chalitza achar bia nami ba you get l'biyasai. So chalitza after bia, people are also going to realize that there's a get. It's going to need a get to get rid of not the zika, to get rid of the relationship when he was boiled, right? So therefore, you don't have to make any gizeiras after chalitza, because meaning there's no nichshel that is going to come after chalitza, right? So that's basically, those are the basic gizeiras. Okay, so that last part's a little more difficult to understand, but the main thing to understand is that they made a gizeira that get has to have some sort of function because otherwise people are gonna make a mistake and think that chalitza doesn't work just like get doesn't work. And the same thing with maimer. They have to say that maimer does some sort of function of yibum, because if they don't, then people are gonna end up messing up and say the same way maimer doesn't work, because maimer works by a regular woman. If they're going to say that maimer doesn't work by Yevama, then people might say that bia doesn't work by Yevama either. So therefore, that puts us into this whole issue of maimer and get have some sort of function, but not a full function because it wasn't the way the Torah prescribed it. Yeah. Okay. We'll stop here. Tomorrow, the beginning of the daf is a little more difficult, and then it gets easier. All right. Fine.
Thank you.
Okay, Zagazant.
Shkoyach.
All right. I hope that was semi-understandable.
Are we starting a new
Thank you.
What do you say?
When are we starting a new Gemara? When's the Siyam?
No. Yevamos is taking us another 2.5 months, my friend.
2.5 months?
More.
Yeah,
maybe.
take a look at your Gemara.
I don't want to look at the end. That's the problem.
I don't understand. What are you complaining about, Naftali? That's about 4 or 5 shirim for you.
No.
I would
on every day this week. What is it, Tuesday?
I want to stay for the fight, but I want to cut my roof. So
bye.
You can continue to fight. I'll watch the recording.
It's not as fun when you can't watch.
I'll watch the pay-per-view afterwards.
Bye.
Ja, Shikaya,